if I think we were going to be having identical twins, I probably would have wanted to paint these individually, just because I think they're going to be their own person. I guess you'll see this in the future, and so I wanted each one to be special to them. I don't know who you guys are yet, but I'll meet you very soon. The ultimate goal is to turn this petite guy into a tiger and the soda pop petite guy into a fox. I am going to take some of the existing ear pieces and sculpt on top of these. I could use the cat ears, but I kind of want a little bit more expressive ears and match a little bit closer to a tiger and a fox. And beyond that, I'm also going to take the face plates and add a bit of a muzzle, extend the snout be more like a big cat for the tiger and a wolf snout for the fox. So that essentially we'll just be using some epoxy sculpt, and we will be modifying that part there and extending out the muzzle, and then we'll be sculpting it and sanding it, and that'll become removable. And lastly, it's going to be working on some modifying the tails. The cat one came with a really small one, so I'm gonna definitely bulk up a large fluffier tail with the sculpt, and same thing with the fox, will be a much larger bushy fox tail. Well, I know that this stuff will harden into something that's really durable. I probably am going to try and incorporate a small bit of armature and make a silhouette of the tail. I could probably just find a wire or even a plastic rod. I think that might work pretty well actually. So if I did use this, I would cut a shorter section and then have the wire pass through this and then branch off into the shape. That way the clay isn't quite as dense and it has a little bit more structure. I'm going to probably run into a similar problem with the faceplates. What I don't want to happen is sculpting on top of this faceplate and having the clay element shear off and fall off of this faceplate, because there's not much surface area to bite here. So what I may do as well on the faceplates, build up some sort of extended structure here, maybe with a rod and a couple really small claw plate pieces, and use the Tamiya cement or thin cement and really glue that on there, and that way the face has something to hold on to. It should be a lot sturdier longer term. But tonight I am just going to use the cements and glue up all these surfaces together, all the parts, because of the way that the ball joints snap into all of these. I can cement all these parts closed. Even the ears, there's a notch carved into the head right there, you can see it, where if you rotate the ear to the right angle, that notch will line up and you'll be able to pull it right out. So I'll be able to paint those separately even though the head is affixed together. There is a seam, mechanical seam running down the side here, but after I glue this I'm going to putty that up so it's one uniform surface. As well as when I was trying to take off all these parts, I snapped the bow right in half. The other thing that I'll be doing with the epoxy putty is there are a couple parts that have no backing, so I'll fill this part in, both of the ribbons have that. Oh, the last other mod I'm going to work on is most of these I'll be able to pull apart after the fact. Maybe these cuffs might have a hard time, so I might do the same thing but I'm not able to actually remove this faceplate without damaging it too much. But thankfully nothing behind here is crucial except for this immediate section right here for the ball joint. To get this out, I'm just going to drill a tiny hole here so I have room to push the faceplate from the back and pop it out. And I'm going to do that on both of these so that I can add these and take them off as I need to, without damaging the outer area. Okay, so I finished the gap filling with both using the epoxy sculpt. So I use it on these larger gaps here. I'm not sure if I like using the brown sculpt, epoxy sculpt, but gave this one kind of a fun finish, at least before painting. I just have to finish sanding these ones, so I filled up the gap behind these ribbons here. Those should be easy to sand. The repair job isn't too bad in this one, just to do a little bit of sanding for the finish. For the other parts, I used the super glue method with baby powder, and I filled in the gaps on the side here. It's only a little bit discolored there, but you wouldn't know otherwise. Same thing there and on the bottom. Basically completely smooth. Might be a tiny bit of touch-up, but I think that'll work. A little bit rough around the neck here, but I'm not too worried since the head is going to be covering up most of it. So the other major one are the sides here. So there was that panel scribed on the side here to kind of hide the fact that there was a seam between these two parts. But I filled that in with super glue as well, on the top, the side here. I think maybe just a couple minor passes. It's not really rough, it's just like a slight lump. So I'll just use a couple different grits of sandpaper on those tiny spots, and that should get rid of that for the most part. So you can see it's just slightly discolored where the glue is, but that should paint completely flat. The next steps are the custom tails, ears, and faces. Like I might have discussed before, I want to build an armature underneath so that the clay doesn't shear off or snap easily on those parts. Instead of using the original tails here, the really tiny parts, see if we can get that there. So I just have this plot plate rod. I can't remember the exact diameter. I think maybe 3 millimeters, but that is just enough to fit in the tail peg there. I don't want to put it in there now. It's a little bit stiff, so I'm going to sand the actual peg. But so this one is going to be the tiger tail. Now this is just a paper clip that's going to be super glued to the end here. So I'm going to leave a couple millimeters to go into as a peg. And I may drill a smaller hole and continue the armature wire into the body, so that just has a little bit extra grip. Maybe some super glue on the very end, so we'll give a little bit more give on the inside and the outside. This is just a straightened out paper clip, and then another one wrapped around, just to give it more surface area and volume to bite onto. Very similar to a traditional clay character armature. And same thing with the foxtail. It's very similar, slightly shorter, but I had a little bit more bulk around where it's going to be wider. So the clay will just go over these. Then we move on to the ears. Now basically I'm going to do a similar method, but I'm just going to use the plot plate, and I cut out the tops of these ears here, a little bit of a gap. Basically just going to glue that there and cut it a couple of millimeters above the ear, and that'll give a little bit more structure to the height of the ear. And then the epoxy sculpt will just go around this, and I'll sculpt around it using this as kind of the base. And then I'll be able to use all the engineering components that are already built into the ears, so I can snap them in afterwards and they'll be able to rotate. So I'm going to be doing that for both of them. And I believe I'm going to do something very similar to the face. I might use a slightly larger rod than this one, but I believe I'm going to drill a hole through here. I've already got a pilot hole here so that I'll be able to use something to pop out the faceplate. Otherwise it's going to be incredibly difficult to remove this in case I add it on before I'm actually done painting, and I don't want to do that. But I might use something like couple of millimeters larger. Yeah, I'll take something about this size and either glue it to the surface or, like I said, drill a hole. I think just a hole and a little bit of glue will be enough, and that'll give me a little bit more strength when I add the clay around it. Now basically it's only extrude a few millimeters, so I don't impede on the actual sculpting process. That's about it for now. So when we come back, I will have started the clay process on all the other parts.